As part of the DS introduction, Sega, of course, was going to make a Sonic game with Dimps, who made Sonic Advance for the Game Boy Advance. It seemed to be a match made in heaven. They showcased a tech demo for such a game during the introduction of the Nintendo DS, known as Sonic DS. As you can see, it doesn't look very similar to what we actually would get with Sonic Rush, but this was, in fact, just a tech demo. A year later, Sonic Rush would be released for the Nintendo DS, which would end up being a nice success for the Dimps company. Wanting to take a little bit of a different stance, they decided to make a game based entirely around speed, introducing a new feature which would be implemented into even the mainline Sonic games, known as the Boost formula. The interesting thing about Sonic Rush is that despite being for the Nintendo DS, the only thing I really used was the top and bottom screen. Your character can go up from top of the screen during the level, and of course it makes the game kind of hard to record, but you can always find a way through people's playthroughs of the game. I like to play original hardware, so I will link to the original footage that I'm using for this, though you can find it if you look up first. Alright. Despite how heavy some games were on the stylus touchpad, Sonic Rush only uses it for the special stages, which you only go in as Sonic, because in the other playthrough you don't even have to go to special stages to get the version of the Chaos Emeralds. Did I speak badly? Yes, I did. The big difference between this and Sonic Advance, really, is the fact that there is only two playable characters with two different story modes. And the second character is a brand new character, which we will get into the development of just now. For the story of this game, they wanted an alternate universe version of Sonic who was female. They originally came up with this interesting concept art, which would be drastically changed. Blaze went through a couple redesigns. They finally decided that she was going to be a cat, and after different styles based off different ethnicities, you probably couldn't tell based off some of the artwork, the final design would appear on the right. She was designed by Akinaro, I believe I'm saying that right, Nishihima, who has been at Sega for a very long time and has been the director of pretty much all the Dimps games from Sonic Advance 1 to 3, as well as Sonic Rush. And of course, they ended up liking this character a lot, so she would become a main player in the next mainline Sonic game, which we'll get to. Hopefully soon. We will see. An interesting unused concept around Blaze was the fact that she was embarrassed by her flame powers, so she wore this cape to hide that, apparently. I'm not sure how a cape hides that. This was scrapped, obviously, though it does showcase a little bit of her personality. Pretty much since her inception, Blaze has been a fan favorite in the Sonic fan community. In fact, I think she's a little overrated, but I'll get to why I think that in a little bit, though she is a great character. She's just one of the most popular, and I don't see anyone dislike her at all. And a lot of people like her personality. She's a more reserved character, not as outgoing as the other ones, and tries to stick to herself because she's kind of a shy character. She doesn't really work well with others, mostly because she hasn't really had to do so before. Her story is basically trying to get along with others, which is fine. There's just one issue I have with this character that makes me not like her as much as other Sonic characters, being the fact that she's an alternate version of Sonic, which for me just makes her character less interesting, since we barely can see this character because of the fact that she's from an alternate dimension. We can't use that unless we write that in, which I always thought was stupid, and I'm not the only one who thinks that, but let's get into the story before I can even talk more about that. Well, I think Sonic Rush is a good game and has two obvious missteps, and one of them is the story. Sonic Rush has more of a story than the previous Advance games, which is fine. I would like to see more story elements, but the story written here is just not good. Essentially, Eggman is alternate universe version Eggman Nega, which is incredibly stupid. This is Eggman Nega, in case you're wondering. It's literally the only related thing to alternate universe. Like, there's Chaos Emeralds, and there's Eggman. Because Blaze doesn't have that much in common with Sonic when it really comes down to it. She can turn super, but so can a bunch of other characters. And she runs fast, but so does a bunch of other characters. And she collects the Soul Emeralds. But then again, so do a bunch of other characters. So really, there's not that much similarities between the two characters. But Eggman Nega, he's literally Eggman with a gray mustache and a Bumblebee pattern instead of the usual red and yellow. No black in Eggman's typical costume. And this was rewritten in the Rivals games, I believe, that he's Eggman's descendant, I think. But who the hell knows? And this character is just kind of dumb. I don't think the idea of alternate dimension is bad. Actually, more people actually like Sonic Prime. I'm actually kind of shocked people actually don't like Sonic Prime. It's not the best thing in the world, but I like it. But here we get a clear example of different alternate dimensions and stuff like that, which is fine, but like I said, making a very unique character to be an alternate universe version of another character, even though they don't have that much in common, just so you can't use that character as often, she's a fan favorite, is a problem I think is a big concern. Not the only one has an issue with this, as a comic book writer Ian Flynn, who's even wrote one of the Sonic games, that's how much he's into Sonic lore, also is not a big fan of the alternate dimension thing, wanting to write a rewrite in the IDW comics so they can use Blaze the Cat more often, because she's kind of stuck in the alternate dimension, and there's really no good reason for it, and no one, a lot of people actually defend it, like, oh, it's great. No, it's not. It sucks. Because even if you don't like Sonic Prime, they actually do stuff interesting with an alternate dimension. Here, we just get, there's another Eggman, so basically it could be his brother more than an alternate person, because they act exactly the same, so one's called Nega, which is a really stupid name. And there really isn't anything in the Soul Dimension that makes it that much different from the regular Sonic Dimension. It's pretty much exactly the same, except there's no Sonic, I guess, but I just don't understand the concept of this alternate dimension thing. Blaze basically could be from a different land and wouldn't have changed anything. All the levels in Sonic Rush are basically level elements we've played before in previous Sonic games, and all the enemies are enemies we've seen in previous Sonic games. There's nothing new or unique that makes this feel like an alternate dimension storyline, so I don't know why they thought it was a good idea to do it this way. The other confusing thing about Blaze is that she's a princess, apparently. We don't see her castle, her kingdom, her parents, or anything like that. She protects the Soul Emerald, which is fine, but what does this have to do with being a princess? I don't get it. We do see a little bit more of that in the next game, I think, but not that much. And the only thing else I've seen of her being really a princess was in the IDW comics, and just for a little bit at that. The main reason I'm putting this up is because this just feels like restrictions they're putting on a character that don't mean a whole lot to her actual personality or if people even like her in the first place. I would be perfectly fine if they got rid of that idea of her being a princess from Ultra Dimension because it doesn't add anything to her character. In fact, they initially did do that. In the next mainline Sonic game, Blaze is a playable character and takes a part in the story. She doesn't have much to do really, but she does do more than she does really in Sonic Rush, to be honest. But, yeah, at the same time, they are like, okay, well, she has not from Alternate Dimension or, like, that weird princess thing with Soul Emerald. She's just a character who is in the future, which is fine. I mean, some people complain about that, but, hey, at least they could have used the character more. But maybe, I don't know, if she's from the future, that would be a little complicated, but whatever. So, yeah, that's just a big issue with that element. And, plus, the story itself is, well, kind of Sonic is like, oh my god, there's a tear in the space-time continuum, but we don't really see much of the effects of this at all. They're just told to us. But because none of the levels or even like really anything else really have anything to do with this tear. Like, it's very, like, why is this a big deal if we don't even see this in the level design itself? I guess they couldn't be bothered as Sonic and Blaze's levels are exactly the same as each other. There's different order of appearance, but they're exactly the same levels, which showcase that, yeah, they really didn't want to put that much effort into this game. And Sonic's like, hey, Eggman Nega, come back here. And it's like, hey, Eggman. It's like, call me by my real name. Eggman Nega. You see, that's pretty much all of Sonic's story. And then he's like, who's this cat girl who I know nothing about? And she's like, go away, I don't like you. And that's the whole story for Sonic's point of view. Blaze's story is a little bit better, but not by much. She's like, I'm in this weird place, but I need to get these Soul Emeralds back. And she meets up with Cream and her mom, Vanilla, and Cream's like, I'm gonna help Blaze out because I like you. And Blaze's like, why do you want to be my friend? Because Cream's like, well, I like being everyone's friend. And that's mostly Blaze's story, and that's a fine dynamic. Blaze learns to have friends. Friendship is power. We're playing a Sonic game. You should know this by now. So as Blaze only wants to collect the Soul Emeralds and not waste her time with anything else, so many other characters, and they all say the same thing. You should talk to Sonic. Sonic's cool. Sonic's great. Sonic's the best. Like, geez Louise, when did the characters suck Sonic's dick so much? I know Amy wants to suck his dick, but when did Knuckles want to suck Sonic's dick? Either way, Knuckles and Amy act really out of character here. I mean, they're just flanderized to hell in this game. Knuckles is a complete buffoon idiot, while Amy's a crazy stalker bitch, which is not the way these characters are supposed to be written, so it's very unfun to see them this way. I like Knuckles and Amy. Don't flanderize them, please. Eventually, Sonic and Blaze will have a fight with each other, because they don't like each other, I guess. For no reason, really. But then they team up at the very end, going super, in order to stop both Eggman, so all is well. Sonic Rush may have one of the worst Sonic stories that I've witnessed so far, unfortunately for it. But hey, let's talk about the more important thing. How's the gameplay? Well, the gameplay is pretty good. In fact, it's the saving grace of. As mentioned at the beginning of this review here, I mentioned that this is the first Sonic game to introduce the idea of the boost mechanic. Boost mechanic works is that if you hit enemies and you do tricks, which you do by going off of ramps and stuff like that, or even grinding on rails, you can build up a boost meter, which makes you go fast and able to plow through different enemies. this is actually a really fun mechanic. In some Sonic games it's not done as well, but Sonic Rush does it pretty well. The trick mechanic is a very fun thing to do because you can run out of boost pretty quickly, but it's very fun to try to build up your trick meter as much as possible in order to get more boost. This makes for a very high-paced, action-packed game with not as much platforming, but it's sort of like the Sonic Advance thing, where you're going faster, you have to react to more obstacles more so than actual platforming. Keep in mind, if you are playing a Dimps game, meaning there is a lot of bottomless pits, which sucks. I don't say it's as bad as the other ones. I feel like this game is just an easier game to control, but there is a lot of BS stuff when it comes to the bottomless pit elements of this game, like the previous advanced titles. Though I haven't had some bad experience with this one compared to them, because I think the gameplay is just a little bit funner. Well, you pretty much got everything you need to know from the gameplay just for the basic boost mechanics. I will talk about the levels, and I must talk about the bosses when I get to them. I have a lot to say about the bosses compared to the actual level design, because pretty much we're doing mostly the same thing we did in the previous Sonic game, except now we're doing it at faster speeds. So I'm going to go for every level that Sonic goes through first, since they are obviously the level curve they expect you to play. Blaze plays every exact same level layouts as Sonic does, she just plays it in a different order, just keep that in mind. Though before I mention the stages, I should talk about the special stages. So you can only go to a special stage as Sonic. When you're playing as Blaze, you'll just get the her Soul Emeralds automatically. You'll find these weird things in the middle, like these, I don't know, spinny things, and you use your boost meter in order to get through them. And once you do that, you'll open a portal, and Sonic will be able to run in 3D mode. And essentially, it's the half-pipe from Sonic 2. But this time, we're controlling it with a stylus, and it actually is kind of fun. I'm not the biggest fan of the half-pipe ones, but it controls incredibly well, and the layouts, while some of them can be a lot harder than others, especially the later ones, for the most part, I think they're much better than Sonic 2, especially since you're in true 3D, which makes it much more playable. So yeah, and the stylus controls work really well, so I didn't have any trouble collecting all 7 Chaos Emeralds. Though, much like a lot of other Sonic games around this time period, you do not get the chance to go super. It just unlocks the final area of the game if you collect both of them with Sonic and Blaze. The Blaze, like I said, all you do is beat the levels, and you don't have to do special stages. So you're required to do just Sonics, which is nice. You don't have to worry about doing it with another character, but I didn't mind playing these special stages, so I didn't really see the point of her not having them. But oh well. It just sucks there is no Super Sonic bonus, because that would have been fun in this game, but oh well. Anyway, our first stage is Leaf Forest Zone. Pretty typical forest zone. There isn't many bottomless pits. It's your basic jungle area. You're mostly flying for the sky, running through vines and tree trunks. Nothing really unique set piece here. It's your basic opening stage. Then we get to the boss, which is annoying. This guy is like a snake, and he'll drop its thing here. And this thing basically can be an instant kill if it hits you. And that's just the big problem with these boss fights. They're incredibly slow, and they have a very large health meter. You can only hit them once for like every minute, so these boss fights can take a while. This guy isn't too hard, but his one move can reset your entire run, and you have to wait for all his animations. Sonic Rush is really bad at boss fights, and Dimps has never really been made good boss fights in the past, but this in particular is just flat out just awful. What makes a really good Sonic boss fight is a good flow, and this boss is just waiting around, and I don't like those type of bosses. I want to actually be actively doing stuff, and here I'm just sitting waiting for the guy to attack. Lame. Sonic's next zone is Water Palace Zone, which is basically a very interesting stage, as it's a water stage, but also a temple and kind of an amusement park water slide ride, so it's kind of a fun stage to go through. You'll find yourself getting bursted by water pipes, grinding rails if you do that in every stage, as well as some underwater sections, but they're actually a lot easier to do than other previous Sonic games that have water. You're either going to get a really good stage with water or bad stage with Sonic. There's no in between with Sonic. Also, if you're good at the game, you can pretty much avoid pretty much all the underwater sections entirely, which is nice. There's also plenty of water bubbles and plenty of... Due to the boost mechanic, it's easy just to get out of the water sections, so that's very nice design. If only the bosses were this well designed. The Water Palace boss isn't too hard, other than there's one attack that's really hard to dodge, but other than that, it's fine. So this is just a Loch Ness Monster thing. It'll just jump down his head, and that's pretty much it. It'll follow you around, but nothing else is very hard about this boss. This is the easiest boss in the game, in my opinion, since it's so easy to avoid its attacks, and it's easy to hit it. So nothing problematic in this boss fight. So we'll move on. The next stage is Mirage Road, which is inside a pyramid, sort of like Sonic Adventure 2, if you will, or maybe Saint-Opera Zone. I really like the aesthetic of here. It's got nice temple stuff. It's got my boy Anubis in the back, which is always nice to see. As you can see, there is rooms where you actually have to defeat a bunch of boss robots, which is kind of strange to have in this style game, but it's okay. The boost takes care of most of them, for the most part. So there's a little bit of sections like that you'll see in the game where you actually have to beat a bunch of robots in a room, which is kind of strange, but that's fine. There will be an on-rail section where you're stuck on a platform, you have to dodge rocks and take out badniks, which is okay. It kind of kills the pace for me personally. I'm not the biggest fan of this level element, in personal opinion, because there's like no rings and your rings fall off easily. They don't really hate letting you keep your rings, even though it's Sonic Rush. You get a lot of rings in this game, while playing the normal levels. The boss fights have limited rings, and they will drop farther away from you. Eventually, your rings just completely go away from you. I have no idea this is an element in other Sonic games, but since I get hit more in these boss fights than I typically do in a typical Sonic game, it makes them a lot harder. However, the Mirage boss fight is actually one of my favorite ones in the game that actually works very well. It's a dung beetle that's going to shoot a little spike ball at you, and you got to hit just right in order for it to hit back at the dung beetle. It has a better flow because they're actually actively doing stuff, and the actual trying hitting it at the right spot is actually a fun mechanic, as well as doing it multiple times in a row. So this is actually a pretty good boss fight. Congratulations, Mirage Road, for actually having a good boss fight in Sonic Rush. The next stage you'll go to as Sonic is Night Carnival, and Night Carnival is pretty much just the casino zone that we see in every Sonic game. There isn't really anything interesting here to say. There's some pathways you can create with green lasers, and that's pretty much it. And it has pretty much all the other elements you'll see in Sonic Rush. The only thing else that's interesting is you got these trapeze, swinging things, and that, yeah, there's not much else to say. It's just an okay casino level without really anything that interesting in it. The boss at this level is kind of this weird ride crane where you gotta avoid the one that's attacking you constantly and hit it when it's not, and then just to hit the other one. And there's this weird thing that follows you around that can also jump into it. It's kind of janky, but once you know how to do it, it's fine. We haven't gotten to the really bad boss fights, but this one has kind of strange design where if you first you have no idea what the hell you're supposed to do, but when you do, it's actually really easy. The next zone is Huge Crisis Zone, which feels like we're in a gun base since there's so many gun robots, and no, the storyline does nothing to say about either. In fact, there's like all these gun beetles and gun hunters around. They're just there, I guess. Who the hell knows? This stage is cool because even though there is some challenging moments like avoiding getting crushed, and of course the Bombas pits are in all these Sonic games, it feels like a 2D version of Sonic Adventure 2 levels, particularly Metal Harbor, which is one of my favorite Sonic stages, so it's cool to play around in this stage. It honestly just feels like a really nice design level. Not really sure what else to say about it, but you know, what you see is what you get. They got lazy for the boss fight, and you're just fighting the same exact boss we fought the first time. He's slightly harder, but since we already fought this guy, it's pretty much just super easy. Or not really super easy, it just, well, I don't know why they had repeated the boss. Like, doesn't make any sense. Oh well. The next stage is Altitude Limit. Basically, we're high above the sky on a bunch of rails and stuff like that, using jet boost platformers to get us up at high. There's death lasers all around us that kill you instantly. Even though I'm not a big fan of the instant death obstacles, the reason this level is designed incredibly well. Like I said, the level design is great, and the stages are fun to play through. Even levels are harder like this one, I still find I have a lot of fun doing, especially trying to find the little hidden areas and goodies. Sonic Rush has some good level design. It just has issues with story and some later boss fights, which we're going to get into real soon because we're going to enter the really bad boss fights just now. But yeah, Altitude Limit is a really great stage for trying to feel the extent of how high the level is. You really feel like you're really high in the sky, and it feels very dangerous, but also feel very stylish for doing really cool maneuvers. Like I said, it is challenging, but in a fun way. The boss fight for Altitude Limit is very slow. He looks cool. It's a nice Falcon Hawk thing here. Eggman or Eggman Nega, whoever the hell it is, who the fuck gives a shit, is shooting bullets from you, and then eventually he'll come down. It's just a very monotonous fight where you're just running back and forth waiting for this guy to attack. Like, come on, hurry up already, and then he'll blow you away, but Sonic can run fast, so what do you think this is going to happen? Seriously, a fan's going to blow Sonic away? Get the fuck out of here. And then one of the last stages that Sonic plays through is Deadline, which is basically just the Death Egg Zone from Sonic 3. It has a lot of the same elements, some anti-gravity areas in these cannons. It feels similar to that stage, just not as good, and you got these turbines that make you go upside down. It is fun, especially with some of these unique mechanics, though I do find there is some annoying Bombas pit areas, but what do you expect? It's a DIMS game. Keep that in mind when playing these games, that there's a lot of areas below you where there's just no ground to stand on. Wish I could say more about these stages, but a lot of the elements they use in these stages are pretty much stuff we've seen in previous Sonic games, so nothing too exciting to mention here. The Deadline Zone boss is your rival, so if you're Sonic, you're fighting Blaze, and Blaze, you're fighting Sonic. Blaze has a bunch of fire pillars that come out the ground and will try to dodge most of your attacks. You can get a couple easy ones on her at first, but she'll keep dodging them. It's not too hard. It's actually a very fast-paced boss. Not the best design, but it's definitely better than some of the rival fights we fought in the Sonic series. Because either these boss fights are either going to be A, pretty good, or most of the time they suck ass, like Knuckles in Sonic Adventure 1. Who could forget that rival fight? So, of course, here's Blaze's version of the fight, and I'm showing it to you like this because her fight is actually a little bit different since Sonic's a different moveset. He'll try to spin dash into you and try to block your fire attacks using his wind attacks because Sonic's a wind type character. Just keep that in mind. And this area of Sonic, people are like, they keep saying Sonic's the Knight of the Wind, and he's the speed of wind, he's the sound of wind, so there's always wind around him. He makes tornadoes, and these can be kind of annoying to dodge. Yeah, we don't want to be on those tornadoes. And yeah, Sonic's boss fight's a little harder than Blaze's, but that's okay. And then to end this boss fight, you got a button masher, which, yeah, it's a button masher. Also, yes, Tails is always in the corner there, the boss fight. If you're playing as Blaze, it's Cream. Though I'll admit, hearing Tails' voice lines and Cream's voice lines over and over again during these boss fights can get really annoying. And then we get the final zone boss, one of the worst boss fights I ever had to fight in a single Sonic game. I'm not joking. This guy can seriously go fuck himself. First of all, the game will actually lag halfway for the boss, so essentially you gotta wait to get to this moment where you can actually hit him on the face by running up his arm, which is okay. At first it didn't seem that bad. Then avoid his arm attack. Now, one of his arm attacks, if you use both of them at the same time, is an instant kill, which is always nice. You're limited to a very small amount of rings in this area map. As mentioned before, the rings can just go away automatically sometimes. And if you want to avoid rings, well, good luck with that, just so you can keep them for later, because it's hard, because most of them are in the path of this boss. You also have to duck down under his arm attack, making this one portion a lot harder than it needs to be. So yeah, the game starts lagging, which is sort of hilarious, with all the shit it tries to throw at you for this boss. And at first, you get used to his hand hitting, and even this, when they add little obstacles to this part of running up his arm. But then they're like, you know what, we'll add the most BS thing ever. You're going to have basically no rings at this point, if you do get to this point. And then essentially, you'll get, well, whatever the fuck this thing is. Do you see this? Do you know how hard it is to dodge these lasers? Let me tell you, it's not easy, especially when the game is fucking lagging. I don't think they even test this boss fight, because this is the only place in the game where it feels janky as hell. The boss has a bunch of bullshit attacks. Like, geez Louise, look how bad the slowdown is. Can you imagine trying to play this? Well, yeah, it took me like 5 days to beat it. That's why I'm having reviewed Sonic Rush until now, because of this one fucking boss fight. Seriously, this fucking Power Ranger reject, where the fuck it's trying to be. Optimus loser here. Not that, there's nothing wrong with Optimus Prime. I'm just saying he's a loser. Fuck Eggman, Nega, Eggman, and yeah, fuck Nega, fuck you. To make matters even funnier, the way you feed him the last hit is super easy. He just comes at you like he's ejaculating or something, and you just jump in his cockpit, and that's it. Like, wow, thank you for giving me one easy hit there, Eggman Nega. Go fuck yourself. And then we get a 2D ending, which is interesting. I like the artwork, even though it's highly pixelated. And look, there's even flickies. What can go wrong with flickies? This artwork is nice, but then it's just like Amy's like Sonic, and that's it. That's the ending. Nothing else to say here. And she wants to hit Sonic for some reason. You know, she was in love with him a second ago. I do not understand why. And then during the credits, we get pixel art of Sonic and Amy. Unique pixel art that actually look better than the actual models used in game. They probably should have used those, right? I guess they decided not to. Because the Sonic model in this game looks pretty janky when you really look at it. Most of the time it'll be boosting, so it doesn't matter. But for the most part, his animations and his run look kind of weird to me. I mean, I think the 2D sprite would have looked better. Other than these boss fights that use a little bit of 3D here, the actual game itself doesn't really have that much 3D elements. Oh well. So anyway, I'll talk about a little bit about Blaze's story campaign now. It's mostly the same, just to showcase her level differences. So she'll start out in Night Carnival rather than Leaf Forest. And then her next zone is Leaf Storm, which I just realized now that I called it Leaf Forest. Oh well. And then she goes to Mirage Road, then Water Palace, Altitude Limit, Huge Crisis, and then Deadline. And yes, she has to fight the same exact boss fight as Sonic. The lovely one for the final zone. He's magenta now, so that makes it easier. Just kidding, it doesn't. Fuck this boss fight. Though I actually did have an easier time playing in Blaze in this boss fight. I'm not sure exactly why. Maybe it's just because I played this boss fight so many times as Sonic that by the time I did as Blaze, it was just easy. It wasn't easy still, but you know what I mean. By this point in the game, Cream was actually kidnapped by Eggman, and Blaze saves her. Well, not really, because she falls from the sky apparently, so I don't know where she was, and she gets a nice hug. Blaze learns to find friends over finding jewels. Hey, if you want to see what a Sonic Advance sprite for Blaze looks like, well, here you go. It would have been cool to see it in the actual game, but whatever. Once you get all the kids in with Sonic and beat both the games, both of the characters, you get an extra zone where you get to face off against 2 Eggmans at the same time. So yeah, the 2 Eggmans are working together so they can basically merge the 2 dimensions together so they can make their own Eggman land, I guess. But Sonic and Blaze are going to stop them. This boss fight that is pretty much inspired by the Sonic 3 final boss is kind of shit. What do you expect? The boss fights in this game aren't very good. Essentially, you have a limited amount of rings, and your character just goes all over the place, and you gotta hit it at the exact moment the guy shoots little missiles at you in order to get it right into the boss fight. This is another boss fight that took me a while to beat the game because it's just not fun, and it's so long. If you fuck up once, you have to redo the entire thing, and to see this stupid animation of it going into the one side and coming out the other. But hey, we get to see Blazing Blaze, who is just Blaze, but on fire. Well, she's mostly on fire anyway. But yeah, essentially she works mostly the same as Super Sonic, but she can shoot flame bullets, I guess, at the Eggman. This boss fight's another trial and error that takes way too long than needs necessary, and that's why I'm not a big fan of this final boss. But eventually, Sonic and Blaze use the superpower of teamwork to charge straight into the robot. I don't even know if it has a name or not, who cares, and just completely destroy it. So the game ends, Sonic and Blaze become friends, and their universes are once again separate from each other, because that's the best thing ever, Sega, isn't it? We don't want to see these characters interact ever again. You know, the ending says, Blaze, I'll see you again, and like, yeah, to fuel some shippers. I don't really understand the Sonic and Blaze shippers. They don't have much chemistry, even though they're alternate versions of each other. Sorry to say that. And yeah, that's Sonic Rush's ending. It's anticlimactic, what you expect from a very mixed game, in my opinion. Sonic Rush is a very fun game with its base gameplay, though due to some of its annoying boss fights and its lackluster story, it's one that I don't recommend as much as the sequel, which I actually do prefer more. Sonic Rush Adventure is better than Sonic Rush, but it's definitely not a hard game to find on the DS, so if you really want to have a Sonic gameplay on the DS, even on 3DS, this is definitely one of the better games. If you feel like Blaze is one of your better games to play as her, I guess, then yeah, Sonic Rush is not a bad game, but it's definitely not one I would put in that high regard due to its kind of glaring flaws that could have been easy to fix, but oh well.
Yo, 俺ソニック今度はこの俺が任天堂 DS で登場だ上から下へ下から上2つの画面を駆け抜けるソニックラッシュ11月23日新発売捕まえてみな
Sonic Rush has never been re-released past its DS stage, which is not great. It really should be re-released. I'm surprised it wasn't put on that DS Wii U Virtual Shop. Not that it matters since that thing is dead. But whatever. As you can see, the price isn't very expensive for a game of this style, I guess. I'm not sure you say. So if you have $15, you can get Lose for 21 complete. Not too bad, but could be a lot better, I guess. Sonic Rush I put into the B tier, right below Sonic Advance 2. I was actually contemplating if I should put it higher than Sonic Advance 2. It ultimately came down to that Advance 2 is a more polished game around and doesn't have a weird story, it looks better. So that's why I had it above Rush. Rush has 2 glaring issues. If it didn't have those issues, would it be higher? It might be even A tier. It's a good game and I highly recommend it to anyone who has a DS and might find it out in the wild, especially if you're a Blaze fan. But yeah, it's one of those games that I think is just okay. Anyway, thank you for watching. Next time, I will be doing either Sonic Jump or Sonic Gems Collection, which both came out in 2005. So I'll see you then. Might not come out in... Actually, probably will come out sooner than you think. It will depend, because I'm doing a lot of other projects and stuff from my personal life. So, yeah, see you then. Bye.